When I think about some of my all-time favorite projects, one of the first that comes to mind is this music video for Hillsong Young and Free for their song Let Go. From the very first call that I got from my co-director Ian Reed all the way to delivering the final edit just a week after shooting, this project was insane, and I'm really excited to dive into the edit today. But before we do that, let's go ahead and watch the video.
Nailed it. Let's move on. Here we go. Lock up. And we're rolling.
I close my eyes and colors fly. There's no hiding from your grace. I can't deny your heart for mine, and it's unrelenting chase. I was on the edge of deception, caught up in my own hesitation, until your love took over me. So I let go and I let love show me life like it's supposed to be. An oasis, here awaits us, all the freedom I'll ever need. Now I'm alive. When I let go, then I find life. When I let go, then I find life. When I let go, then I find life. The hideaway is calling me to a life unlike before. The Father's heart is beckoning, and I can't resist no more. Lead me in the ways of devotion. I don't wanna get caught in the motions. My heart is only for you, Lord. So I let go and I let love show me life like it's supposed to be. An oasis, here awaits us, all the freedom I'll ever need. Now I'm alive. When I let go, then I find life. When I let go, then I find life. When I let go, then I find life. So I let go and I let love show me life like it's supposed to be. An oasis, here awaits us, all the freedom I'll ever need. Now I'm alive. When I let go, then I find life. 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 Oh la la, oh la la. When I let go, then I find life.
So like I mentioned before, the production on this was absolutely insane. We knew that we were going to be shooting at this gorgeous location out in Salt Lake City in the Salt Flats, and we wanted to make sure that we really got, the most out of it. Ian and I decided to really take the entire budget and put it into the gear. We used 5 cameras total with a different sort of set of lenses on each, and the combos that we used were a Red Dragon with an anamorphic lens. Most of the time this was placed on the Movi, an Alexa Mini. I think we used an 18-35 zoom lens on this so that we could quickly change between focal lengths. Next up, we had a handheld 8mm film camera So this was using real Kodak film. And then next up, we had a DVX 100, which is this old little tape-based camera that we used to use in like the early thousands. Then we put a good amount of the budget into renting a Phantom 4K 1000 frames per second slow motion camera. And this camera was really insane to use. The results from this are obviously some of the craziest that we were able to capture. And then actually make it 6 cameras. We had a 6th camera, which was actually a stills camera called a Nishika. This camera has 4 lenses on the front. And so when you pull the shutter, it takes 4 photos all at once from slightly different angles that allow us to sort of pan back and forth. And so we wanted to kind of give it a shot and see if it could kind of incorporate even more into our sort of multimedia approach. We knew that we wanted to be really high energy with this song. We were going to take a lot of more natural and candid moments from the footage. And so a lot of times we're rolling and setting things up where kind of naturally fun things could be occurring. While other times, you know, we were being far more intentional to make sure that the shot that was in our head was being executed perfectly. But one of the funnest parts of this whole thing came down to the edits. Like I mentioned before as well, we only had about 7 days to turn this whole thing around. And so, you know, I was able to take all that footage as quickly as possible, create proxies so that we were moving really quickly, and then dive in. And so today I want to show you how it all came together and just really break down how completely different elements became sort of a cohesive feeling. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the edit. All right, so most of you know by now that I'm not usually this organized in an edit. I really just thought it would be helpful for the sake of this breakdown to go ahead and sort of color coordinate and really, you know, label things so that we could all follow along visually a little bit more easily. So straight off the bat, we have these blue clips right here, which are our 8mm footage. In the tan color, we have our DVX footage. In red, we have the B-roll takes of both the Alexa and Red footage. This orange stuff is our Phantom footage, the slow motion camera. We additionally have these sort of like fog or, you know, different little stock clips that I pulled for different reasons throughout the edits. And then down here at the bottom, we have these green layers, which essentially all of our performance related takes, anything where they were singing or their mouth was moving, you know, in time with the music, is all thrown into a multicam sequence down here. And so if we open this up, you'll actually see how massive this is. We have 26 video takes here, 26 times, you know, that they perform the song. You know, keeping things in that multicam sequence is such an important part of this music video process. Then above the line, everything pink is these letterboxes, which we're using a 16:9 to square, you know, and then we've got this like sort of Panavision kind of look. And we use these for a couple of reasons. So first of all, we're using them to further accentuate the sort of multimedia sort of approach that we wanted to take in this video. There's times that they were not necessary, but we wanted to do it anyway just to really push things. And then there's other times where, like in this shot, for example, if you turn this off, you'll see that we're actually using it as a way to hide a horizon adjustment. So, you know, if we were to set this back to its original state, let's see, put this in 50 and, you know, put this back. That's just kind of, things like that make me kind of uncomfortable. Like I really focus on horizons and little details in a final edit so we can put all that back. Then in this Caribbean color, this sort of green here, we have the doodles, which this is also set up as a nested sequence similar to our multicam. If we click into this, you're going to see all of these doodles and all these sketches, which I'll mention more in a second, but those were set up, you know, very easily in there with different blending modes to help us, you know, kind of do different things throughout the edit. And then finally, we have this light blue layer right here, which you'll see is disabled. So we've muted that for the sake of this breakdown, but essentially what this was or is our final color grade. My co-director, Ian Reed, was in Washington, D.C. While I was editing in Nashville. But since he's a little bit more experienced as a colorist, I wanted to get him the final file for him to work with. So, you know, rather than sharing the whole project and the footage and all this stuff, you know, with our tight timeline, I basically just sent him an ungraded, you know, ProRes of the final picture locked edit. And then he sent me back this final color grade there. All right, so that in a nutshell is the breakdown of the sort of organization of what we're going to be looking at here. But let's really quickly talk about the sort of organization of how I set up this project, which again had a massive amount of footage. to really be able to like sift through it quickly and make, good decisions quickly. Here's our selects timeline. And we've talked about this process that's just so important. So here at the very beginning, we had all of our, our multicam. If we were to open that back up, you'd see those 26 layers. In here, we had a couple sort of like ideas that I was starting to form with, the sort of phantom footage. Here we have, just all of our different outtakes of, the Red and Alexa stuff. And you'll kind of get a quick view of all the things that we didn't use on this project, which, is just as important as what we did end up using. But, setting up this selects sequence allowed me to quickly, move back and forward between, our final, sort of assembly timeline and this whole batch of footage. So stuff that I, preferred to use or thought I was going to use more is raised up to higher levels, sort of in that like, rating system. And then, as I was working, I had this set up in Pancake timeline so that I could jump between and, really be able to, if I would just drag that over, there's no copy paste. It's just super, super snappy. So there's that. Okay, so now that we've gone over how we structured this edit, I'm super excited to dive into some of the more creative decisions that we made throughout. And so we're really just going to take this thing sort of moment by moment, clip by clip, and hopefully give some insights into the decisions that we made along the way. So the first thing that I want to look at is this very sort of this intro hook that we created. And rather than just going straight into the song, we kind of created this little moment of sound design and some sort of outtake related type stuff. And let's just kind of watch that back, and then I'll break down the decision that we made there.
Nailed it. Let's move on. Here we go. Last shot. Camera's rolling.
I close my eyes.
Okay, so, we've got all this, camera audio. We've got, all these crazy sort of little moments going here. We, start with 8mm footage and then cut to this DVX stuff and then to this Red B-roll and then to these sketches and, all these different things all within those first couple seconds. Ian is screaming about something and we're rolling on to the next take and it's just kind of chaos and all this, energy. And the question could be, well, why do that instead of just starting with the song itself? But if we mute everything else and just solo the music on its own, even with the visuals, even with the sort of mixed media visuals that we see, there was just no sort of energy to set up the expectation for the rest of the video. And so playing this back, it just didn't have what we needed. And so throwing in all that sound design really helped, push this thing to the next level and sort of capture your attention and, give you an expectation of, what was coming in the rest of the video. So, moving on here, we've got this great shot of Aiden here, and we're in the middle of the desert. This is one of our first shots of the day. We're basically pulling back in a van, and he's got his eyes closed here at sunrise. Beautiful shot. One thing that I do want to mention is Ian did a great job in the color and retouching phase of getting rid of this little stray hair. If you notice this, so when I play this back, you won't be able to miss it. There's this really distracting little hair. And so we got rid of that in the final edit, and it's all gone just from using a simple mask there. So that helped a lot. And then we also made this decision to use, kind of push the whole mixed media thing even further and use this square letterbox. But I wanted to add an animation that sort of widened out as we went. And so as we go, that's kind of expanding out and, moving us on into the next scene. So in this scene, we've got them, performing in slow motion and anamorphic. And that little transition moment is something that I loved about this take, and it's one of the reasons why I chose this take specifically, because the combination of the camera movement with Aiden's sort of dance there just created a nice sort of energy and movement and kind of set up the flow into this pre-chorus. Again, we've got a great shot of Aiden a little bit more sort of, abstract and kind of looking away. So we've got everything from him looking in the camera to now looking away, a little bit more sort of, artsy fartsy. We've got these shadow moments and these sort of almost like moody sort of B-roll moments to accentuate the lyrics. And then to this shot of Aiden where we break the fourth wall, he looks in the camera, and we kind of get this this more sort of candid moment to be able to connect with him as an artist, as a person. And I love this because it just kind of just sets up this like, this real sort of one-on-one connection moment early on in the video. We open, with this like sort of more mysterious version of him where he's got his eyes closed and he's sort of basking in the moment. But before getting to this chorus, we sort of get a chance to look in his eyes and kind of go from there. So the next little moment here, I thought was really fun. So these were actually still frames from the 8mm footage that Ian sent me that we were freaking out about how good they looked, basically. And I thought it was really cool to be able to sort of use them as a quick cutting mechanism. I think they're all set at about 2 or 3 frames each. And then I basically had these sketch elements, which were, then layered on with a blending mode. So a quick note about these sketch elements too, and why we decided to use these in the edit. So the artwork for this single and for the album that, was being released by Hillsong Young and Free, they were taking this really cool sort of hand-drawn, very loose and sort of organic feel. There were spray painted elements. It was everything was very textured and organic. And, in an attempt to really tie that sort of artistic approach into the rest of the video, I wanted to push the multimedia thing even further and try introducing some of those sketch elements, into our edit. So I reached out to them and asked, if they had, additional artwork or if they could, create more stuff for us. And with the timeline that we were on, they didn't have the ability to do that. So I actually asked my wife, Jillian, to basically, dive in and basically the direction I gave her was like, hey, like this does not have to look good. Like I want this to look like a kid was working on it. Like go in there and just make random stuff that feels cool. And this is what she, came up with, and I absolutely love it. She did it all on paper, and we actually basically just scanned it in and inverted it. And so I'm going to show you what that looked like, on its own. So if we were to just grab an adjustment layer here and re-invert this, I'll show you what it looked like originally. So all of these, let me scale this up. So this is what all of these sketch elements look like. They were just on white paper, using crayons and markers and things like that, all hand drawn. And so we then inverted them, and we had this really cool look. And because it was on black then, we were able to, use different blending modes, like lighten or screen, to be able to overlay it over, our footage. And so as you see this, because they're in a sequence where they're just kind of placed on top of things, I sort of just started falling in love with these sort of happy accidents that we were discovering along the way. And so you have all these really unique little moments that if you were to pause the frame, we could have never planned for this to be, what she decided to do in that moment. But because she was doing something on her own and we had the footage doing something on its own, then we're using these blending modes to sort of, to discover these happy accidents, so to speak. I just could not be more thrilled about, the different stuff that we came up with, like, for example, the O landing right on his eyes and things like that. So really love this stuff, but let's kind of zoom back into the project itself, and I'll kind of pull us back so we can get some context again. But, playing this back, we're now heading into the pre-chorus. And so here we go. All right, so we're kind of slowing things down again to allow us to kind of focus on them. We're kind of ramping up the energy with these B-roll moments. He's talking about Oasis, and we've got this massive shot of, them with sort of storm clouds forming over them. Some high energy dance, and then a massive amount of just crazy, strobe footage combined with all these sort of happy accident moments. I think, if we just look at our, 8mm footage here that we chose, these are moments where literally the camera is just swinging around. Like these are blurry, terrible moments when it comes to camera operation, but I really liked just the texture that it created, especially, with these sketch elements laid on, on top. So really cool. And then moving on to the big moment of revealing our sort of falling shot here in the chorus. So let's back up and play this back. All right, so breaking this down. So this first shot of the chorus, we just freeze time essentially. I actually love how in the song you can hear sort of a ticking clock. That's actually a musical element that drove part of this decision, was this idea to slow down time. So the rest of the video is chaotic and crazy, and we wanted to have this really strong contrast to really echo the message of the lyrics that time can slow down and things can feel peaceful and weightless in this moment. And so if we look at how we pulled this off in the edit, you're going to end up laughing at how easy this actually was. But clicking into this nested sequence, you're going to find sort of a Russian nesting doll of nested sequences here. And we've got this second one, which was just used for a speed ramp. So we had to have a speed ramp within that, and then clicking in one more time, we find our final shot, and you can see how we broke this down. So if we click on our top layer here and actually just disable it, you're going to see that underneath is basically just, it's basically just a plate. And a plate is basically a shot that you get, that has nothing in it, no subject, no talent, to be able to, use in a VFX comp like we did here. But our main shot of Aiden falling, if we turn off this mask, you're going to see that underneath is just literally a pile of like baby mattresses and gym mats that we either rented or bought on Amazon and lugged with us to the desert in our minivan that we rented. So, and we literally just had Aiden jump as high as he could and fall right on his back onto that thing. And so we cut this off right before, but he was not happy with us. I'll just say that. And we have him just jumping backwards over and over, trying to get the perfect touch, the perfect shot where his feet aren't, clashing in front of the mat and all that kind of stuff. So it made for an easier comp. And then literally all we did, and I'll just kind of redo this really quickly, is, jumping into our opacity tool using the pen tool, just doing a super easy, garbage mat just like this, and kind of just getting this organized like this, and then completing it. And if we invert, you'll see that all of a sudden he is now floating in midair. So we've got a little bit of a hard line there. If you see closely, it's a little too hard. So to fix that, we literally just feather, increase the feather. And because of that, we're now seeing the mattresses. So we expand and maybe tweak a little bit to just fix that up. But just like that, so then we would have to come down here. And when he got down here, we'd realize that, he was feathering out. And so you just kind of tweak all these little things. But this shot was so easy to pull off in the post side of things. And the beauty of knowing, this kind of thing in my role as a director and an editor is that when you're a good editor and you know how easy some of these incredible looks are to achieve, you can take that into your direction, right? Or you can collaborate with your director in a more comprehensive way. So when you're working on a treatment and it's like, man, like, and literally, like, if you look at our treatment, originally we wanted to have like a crane in the middle of the desert that was hoisting, Ian back on a set of cables. And we were like, we can't do that. There's no budget for it. We've already spent it all on this, on everything else. So there was no budget for that and there was no time. It would have taken pretty much the whole day to set it up. So rather, we were able to sort of tap into our skills as editors and plan for this shot as directors. And it gave us this incredible ability to do something that was way beyond our budget, very easily within, the span of just a few minutes or maybe an hour on set that day. So I'm going to undo this, but that's kind of a breakdown of everything that we did in that video. And coming back to the main edit here, if we click into this sort of middle nested sequence here, you'll see that we have a couple things going on there's a rotation, keyframe, as well as a scale keyframe and a speed ramp. And so those three things all work together. I like the idea of the rotation because if you turn that off and set that to 0, it just feels a little lifeless. But I liked the idea that, with that animation, we could kind of almost keep him flat while the earth turned. Just felt a little bit more interesting. And so again, super easy trick that we used to just take things to the next level. And the final layer that kind of helps sell things in a really subtle way is if we click in this, you'll see this fog layer, which is literally like an $8 stock clip on VideoHive. And, if we were to play this, you just see it's like this fog stuff. So, we have this set up as, with a blending mode, a screen blending mode. If we were to turn this up all the way, you would notice it a little bit more, but it just felt a little too intense. So we turn it back down. Or if you were to turn it off, you would see that it just needed a little something. It kind of created this, a very, very subtle contrast of time being frozen to this foreground moving a little bit more sort of rapidly and sort of normal speed, right? All right, so that's the breakdown of the sort of money shot, so to speak. And let's move on with the rest of the edit. So here we had some more phantom moments. This one, he's actually like literally laying on the mats that I showed you a second ago, and we're just kind of moving the camera really quick to get it to feel like he's flailing around and falling in midair. And then this one, again, we had him jump, but it feels like he's kind of floating. And then we're into this really high energy part of the song. So we come out of this really serious kind of like, filmmaker mode and just get really light. And he's just smiling and laughing in this random area of the desert. And then we're into this like really bright, sunny, kind of dancey vibe. And here's where we use, the Nishika elements in a really cool way to transition us. So just really allowing that mixed media thing to drive things even further. All right, in this section, we have just some crazy kind of dance, using the strobe, using some sort of like zoomy outtakes, on the 8mm. All these kind of moments that were just really fun and loose, very B-roll driven. And then we slow it down here to sort of like, establish, that we're coming back down. And we come straight to Karina. This is the first time we get to sort of focus on her. So again, I love this point of contrast, right? So we've gone from really high energy to this like sunset moment. And then we come to this like very abstract, like girl laying in the desert playing with her shadows kind of moment, which is a little serious, you know what I mean? And then immediately into this next shot, which is like the worst possible camera we could find. And she's waving at us directly on top of a bus, right? So it's like, and we're zooming in. So everything is just like, creating not just mixed media contrast between like, 4:3 and 16:9 or 8mm and red, footage, but really playing with the emotional side of that too. And saying, no, we're going to go from like hyper abstract, and sort of artsy to like very fun and candid, right? Then back to the shadows, 8mm, and now we see her face and we get this, that same sort of like reveal of like we're hiding her and then we're, revealing her and playing with that whole contrast. Nishika, too fun. Even this shot, like I loved the fact that we just got Aiden on his phone, like taking in the scenery, because it makes you kind of feel like you're along for the journey too. It's like a very behind the scenes thing to throw into an edit like this, but I loved doing that because it helped just loosen things up and taking the sort of edge off of, these very serious moments. And because we have these very lighthearted moments, those serious moments feel all the more serious and vice versa. So I love those little moments. And then we kind of use a slow motion moment to transition us, into a more high energy moment. So with a speed ramp there. So we've got, very smooth into like camera shakings and, kind of falling apart. And this is almost a jump cut of sorts where it's like he's almost in the same spot, from one frame to the next. So I just love the way that feels. The energy is really picking up in this pre-chorus compared to last time. It's basically the same shot, but we're tighter. And then those little B-roll outtakes on 8mm. So that's kind of a fun little moment. So this was actually, my friend Paul, who shot this stuff, we used to play with this concept all the time. It's a dolly zoom, which is, if you look at movies like Jaws or, there's a bunch of movies that did it. Spielberg is kind of a master of this, where you're essentially dollying out. So you're pulling the camera back while zooming in, or you're zooming in while pulling the dolly out. So, or whatever, vice versa. So we have been playing with this on this DVX. This is like an old trick that we used to try to do. So that's literally him running backwards and zooming in. And it creates this really interesting kind of, feeling in this edit with some sketch elements. And now we've got pre-chorus 2 with her falling. We're trying to, switch things up even further. We've got this flipped upside down with this little rotation here. She's falling. And then we're starting to do these like sort of really musical cut moments here to her dancing on the bus. And then she's falling and strobe and crazy and, you know, mixing things up. That's kind of a fun one right here. So if you look at this, we've got actually a number of keyframes on this. And so we've got, you know, the scale and the position all kind of locking into this moment where he's kind of like, you know, dancing around there. Kind of flipping things around. We've got him kind of being like, come on, like, let's go, you know, like playing with us. Then we've got his, I love this little like synth moment. And so we accentuate with that with a dance move. We played with this like duplication thing, which is literally just a nested sequence of two of him standing side by side using that same masking technique. Again, you know, one on top of the other, like this is what we have here. And then underneath is the main shot. Again, super simple and not really a, you know, a big moment in the edit, but just something fun to kind of keep things playful. And then we have this cool little transition moment here where it's kind of a jump cut again, right? He's almost doing the same move. And, you know, from this Nishika shot to this, we kind of get this really interesting, fun little transition by mistake. Slowing things way down here. He's kind of like out of breath. We all were at that point. Nice little moment there. Right? Kind of slow shot. This is probably one of our longest shots in the whole video because we really want to create contrast here for, you know, we need a second to breathe. The song is giving it to us and it's driving that decision in the edit. All right, so using some of those masking tricks again, kind of in reverse, kind of, you know, coming tighter. Now here's one of my favorite moments in the edit. Okay, so this is, and I'm going to turn the color on for this one because this one just gets so fun. So this is one of those happy accidents again where he just happened to do the same move twice. You know, performance, you know, 10 hours before and then later on at night in the middle of this sort of more strobe setting. So we'll just take this frame by frame here, you know, so he spins and then all of a sudden we transition to the exact same spin later on in the middle of the desert. And so this happens, you know, it kind of goes from day to night, almost, you know, within a split second there. And then we use our, you know, our lightning elements and our sketch elements to really push things even further. So again, we have this, you know, a stock clip that I got on Video Hive, and it's literally just a shot of lightning. And I use this here with a blending mode of difference over the entire edit, and it kind of just creates this even more high energy strobing moments. We actually use lightning to kind of, the thought behind choosing lightning was that we wanted to play with this idea of oasis and water and, you know, sort of storm clouds rolling into this desert, which is sort of a subtle touch in the edit, but that's kind of the intention that we had going in. And so when all these moments are combined, you know, you get this crazy transition. And one of those things we just could not have planned for. It really was just handed to us. And so I'm super stoked about how that worked out. We'll turn the color back off and keep rolling here. But, you know, that's kind of one of my favorite moments of the edit. So again, really strong contrast, just kind of letting things chill for a second here. And then we start really picking up the pace in this final chorus. And it's, if you watch back, you know, the more I watch this video, it's crazy because it almost feels like the tempo of the song changes in this third chorus. But nothing changes at all musically, but there's such rapid pace, you know, edit that comes in this last bit that things feel so intense. And it's almost like you didn't even know that we could go this much harder, you know, in the level of energy and fast paced cuts. And so we take it even further here. So let's kind of watch, you know, again, we use this moment to kind of just create a breathing moment after one crazy moment and sort of sandwich, you know, before going into the next one. And then we'll kind of roll into this outro sequence that gets pretty wild. So some dancing, some faster cuts here. Another sort of jump cut moment, candid. So we're just jumping between as many things as we can, basically. The edits get crazy. So we have a little moment here where he's kind of like, you know, being like pushed and sort of pulled by the music itself. And then we have this great ending where they kind of turn around, run away, and then we have, you know, this this cool little, you know, film exit with some sound design. So let's just kind of take a look at a couple of these moments. Some of my favorite little shots of her, you know, actually ended up just being like single frame or 2 or 3 frames. But I love doing stuff like that because it just gives your eye this like, whoa, like what was that? And so those little things where you just kind of drop stuff in from your select sequence, you know, into this main timeline, you just kind of get these moments can be really cool. And one other thing that I'll mention about, you know, little, the sort of technique behind those little cut sequences when you're trying to ramp up energy is you really want to create contrast between each shot. So again, we have her here. If we turn the color back on, we have sort of like bright, sunny, white kind of feeling. Then we have this very colorful sort of like bus. Then we go straight into this nighttime like strobe stuff where they're dancing. Then we have the color and the texture from the sketch elements. And then we have, you know, back out to the sort of desert and then to candid. So it's like one thing after another between, you know, from theme to formats to aspect ratio, everything is getting a moment of contrast here. And we're just dropping them in, you know, as quickly as possible to really push that, right? So, all right, let's play through the end. And like I said, we have this little moment of all these cuts here, just kind of wrapping things up the same way that we started, almost like a bookend. And again, if you turn off the sound design here, you're going to notice how kind of dead this ending feels. So sometimes, you know, even with a music video where there's so much audio being driven, you still kind of want to come alongside and just kind of accentuate a little bit. So here's without sound design here. Like it's just nothing, right? And if we were to even, you know, turn off this entire ending, let's just turn all this off and you would see how kind of dead this is. It's like the song just goes from like 100 to 0 in 2 seconds. And so we had to find a way to sort of ease out of that for the sake of the edit. Could have been fine, but, you know, really better with all the stuff that we added. I think that's why we did it. So that in a nutshell is, you know, some of this edit and just kind of the thought behind it, you know, the intentionality behind some of the decisions that we made. I hope that you got some, you know, some good little tricks and tips here and there. And again, I think the biggest things about this edit were embracing the sort of multi-format thing, being okay with these happy accidents, pulling something from the artwork, and sort of trying to incorporate that for the sake of, you know, really adding something extra to the client's overall vision in this project, and then just, you know, creating those moments of contrast that are so strong between each of these themes or sequences or shots or colors or anything like that. So hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, I would love to hear from you. If there's certain videos that you'd like for me to break down, please let me know. And until next time, happy editing.